you, Merrick Garland. Also, finally, a lot of progressives, myself included, have been borderline infuriated by what we perceive as the lack of action on the part of the DOJ with regards to the ongoing assault on small d democracy. While the January 6th Commission has been doing a fairly bang-up job, albeit a slower one than I might perhaps personally prefer, Garland himself has been pretty much radio silent on the topic. And I interpreted that as a lack of desire to engage, or sort of a I'll stay above the fray, let them deal with it sort of attitude. Which I'm not sure is the best approach to an attempted coup that is still basically happening. The right, and especially the far right, they're not even trying to hide what they're doing in order to ensure control over the next election. They're changing voting districts, they're putting in place sympathetic officials, they're tightening up voting restrictions, and all of this, of course, is going to target disenfranchised people and those who are more likely to vote against them. Which is why, when I heard Merrick Garland's speech to the Department of Justice, I just about ran laps around my house in joy. Because while he might not have overtly said what I'm dying to hear, which is, to be clear, that Trump and his co-conspirators will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, isn't that kind of what he was saying? First, Garland addressed the perception that the Justice Department is only going after the small fry. Basically, they're, going for the low-hanging fruit for prosecution rather than going for the big fish. Sorry, that is a very mixed metaphor. The big fish who masterminded the whole thing.
A necessary consequence to the prosecutorial approach of charging less serious offenses first is that courts impose shorter sentences before they impose longer ones.
He sends out what, to my ears at least, sounds like a warning, an explicit warning, against anyone who might be considering additional acts of violence. And he also lays out the difference between First Amendment speech, protected, and threats of violence against another human being, not.
The Justice Department will continue to investigate violence and illegal threats of violence, disrupt that violence before it occurs, and hold perpetrators accountable. Peacefully expressing a view or ideology, no matter how extreme, is protected by the First Amendment. But illegally threatening to harm or kill another person is not. There is no First Amendment right to unlawfully threaten to harm or kill someone.
Since Garland made this speech on January 5th, I had to wonder whether he was reacting to credible threats that had been made with regards to the following day, January 6th, or whether he was talking about insurrection and violence more generally, but I'll take either one for the win. Garland also emphasized the importance of cooperating with investigators. He appealed to people's patriotism, but apparently that's not always enough, Mark Meadows. And he underscored how cooperation is actually the best choice, even from a selfish perspective.
In charging the perpetrators, we have followed well-worn prosecutorial practices. Those who assaulted officers or damaged the Capitol face greater charges. Those who conspired with others to obstruct the vote count also face greater charges. Those who did not undertake such conduct have been charged with lesser offenses, particularly if they accepted their responsibility early and cooperated with the investigation.
In short, Garland is appealing to people's baser sensibilities, the fundamental desire of most people who are not Steve Bannon to not want to go to jail. Way to take a page out of the right-wing playbook, Mayor. I actually do mean that as a compliment. Most people are more likely to heed a threat to their personal autonomy than one that threatens their sort of more abstract sense of right and wrong. Most uplifting, however, was Garland's assurance about the scope of the investigation and that it won't stop with that yahoo who stole Nancy Pelosi's lectern.
The central norm is that in our criminal investigations, there cannot be different rules depending on one's political party or affiliation. There cannot be different rules for friends and foes, and there cannot be different rules for the powerful and the powerless.
I mean, he's not talking about Trump, but isn't he kinda? I have to tell you, I really enjoy Merrick Garland's version of throwing shade. And finally, his most hopeful statement yet in a very hopefully prescient speech.
The actions we have taken thus far will not be our last.
Gonna hold you to that one, sir.